The Great Reset is coming and it is inevitable to happen. This will be a cashless society and a global currency that's inside a blockchain. This is not an idea. This is an agenda. The agenda is called the Great Reset, which was announced in 2020 by the World Economic Forum. And since then, we've already seen many businesses and shops refusing to take cash. Even though the World Economic Forum has publicly shared parts of its world agenda, it's possible that there'll be a great revolt, which could slow down or undo its plans. Of course, I can't say for sure what the future will hold. All I can do is study and prepare for it, and I suggest you do the same. This could all happen very quickly. Remember how quickly COVID-19 lockdowns came? It was almost overnight. First, we heard it was happening in China. Then within a few weeks, the whole world was locked down, wearing masks. Historically, huge changes have been announced in times of crisis, where everybody's scared and clinging onto the government to save them, even though the government was often the origin of the problem. And it's likely that just before the Great Reset, the government will create a huge problem to justify the life-altering change. Possibly fear of World War III or worse. The majority of people will go along like sheep. The critical thinkers will mostly stay quiet. If they banned cash without a strong emotive reason, people would revolt. If enough people rebel, the powerful become powerless. So when they ban cash, and when the Great Reset of money happens, question is, what happens to your savings? I'm sorry to say that my prediction is that they'll be wiped to zero, but so will your debts. If you borrowed fiat money, if that currency is now worthless, your debt vanishes in equal measure. That's why it's called the Great Reset, because everybody's currency is reset to zero. Some people assume that their money will be transferred to another currency or form of blockchain. I think that's naive, and it would defeat the government's whole agenda of a complete reset. Unless fiat money disappears, the government will still have to pay off its debts. Governments have no intention of paying off their debts. Fiat money only came into existence in the 20th century. That's when they started printing trillions. It's now impossible to pay it back, and now impossible to revert to the gold standard. We'll have to have a great reset. During the 2008 financial crisis, the chairman at the time of the Federal Reserve, the USA's central bank, Ben Bernanke, was criticized for printing so much money, and his response was, quantitative easings, i.e. printing money, doesn't work in theory, but it seems to work in practice. That was his quote. Money as we know it will become like toilet paper. I've personally already witnessed a complete reset of money in Zimbabwe. In 1997, my parents, in-law, saved up approximately 1.6 million Zimbabwean dollars. At the time, this was similar to £160,000. They bought a beautiful house in cash with their entire 1.6 million Zimbabwean dollars. At the time, many of their friends thought it was risky buying a house because the property market was volatile. Meanwhile, many Zimbabweans worked hard and kept their cash liquid in the bank. A few years later, in the early 2000s, the Zimbabwean government under Robert Mugabe began aggressively printing Zimbabwean dollars. This caused hyperinflation, and the price of houses, goods and services exponentially exploded. This was great for rich people, but terrible for poor people. The Zimbabwean dollar lost so much buying power that people began losing their faith in paper money and the government altogether. In 2009, people who had 1.6 million Zimbabwean dollars in cash realized that their cash was completely worthless. If you went to the bank today and asked to exchange 1 million Zimbabwean dollars into gold, they'd laugh at you. The money reset happened in Zimbabwe. Now, they don't have currency. You can trade in US dollars, but the government has said this is just a temporary measure. Many people have to barter today in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is not alone in having a nationwide reset on their money and their currency crashing to nothing. This has also happened in many other countries that have printed too much money, including Hungary, Argentina, old Germany, Yugoslavia, Venezuela, Brazil, Greece, Poland, Peru, Zambia, and North Korea. The UK tries its best to keep inflation low enough to not have to do the same, but the entire world is printing so much fake money that a great reset is ultimately inevitable. It is just a matter of time. And the World Economic Forum's Great Reset agenda was first announced in 2020 with an initial prediction of 2030. It could be 2040 or 2050, but I'd like to prepare as if it could happen tomorrow. As the general public became increasingly aware that fiat money was fake, Bitcoin was first created in 2009. And Bitcoin is a new currency altogether that often referred to as the people's money because it operates without any central authority or government involvement. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins. So unlike fiat money, it can't be printed or duplicated. Bitcoin operates within a revolutionary technology known as blockchain, which is revolutionary due to its ability to enable secure, transparent, and decentralized transactions without the need for banks or the governments to be involved. You can exchange £8,000 for one Bitcoin in 2012. In 2018, I bought 2 Bitcoins and paid £10,000 each. And many people told me, oh, you've come in too late. At the current time of writing, my 2 Bitcoins are worth almost £100,000. I'm glad I didn't listen to my friends. In fact, I wish I'd bought more. The more people realize that the government's printed money is fake, the more people will invest in cryptocurrencies on the blockchain. The more they do that, the more the cryptocurrencies will be worth. However, it's only a matter of time, in my opinion, before the government hijacks people's money and creates its own coin on the blockchain. And this will be known as CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Let's not forget that the Swedish government locked up the first person who ever started a bank and then copied his exact idea and did the same. And I predict the government will do the exact same thing with the blockchain. And I'm confident that there'll ultimately be one global government currency with one governing body and potentially one leader. And it's possible that they'll outlaw all other digital coins, including Bitcoin. In 2021, the People's Bank of China, China's central bank, announced that all cryptocurrency transactions were now illegal, effectively banning trading in Bitcoin and all other cryptocurrencies. And you might go, oh yeah, but that's China. It will never happen in the UK. The Bank of England is already examining how to introduce a digital pound. This was really pushed hard by the former Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. China is in the testing phase of a government-run digital currency called digital yuan. The European Union is actively researching launching the digital euro. And the Federal Reserve in the USA is taking a more cautious approach, but as full-time researchers exploring implications of introducing a digital dollar. And it's only a matter of time before the phenomenon happens. And this will be part of the Great Reset. In the same way that governments are already aggressively phasing out physical cash, they will aggressively phase out traditional banking. And many people will not have banks and will use government blockchain for all payments. In the same way that big companies have said they are no longer accepting cash, they'll start saying they're no longer accepting non-CBDC payments. And it'll become even easier and more straightforward than Apple Pay. All the young people will use it. Governments will then use their usual problem reaction solution of completely collapsing fiat money. And all people with British pounds in their old-fashioned banks will be wiped to zero. It'll be all done for the greater good of the economy and to prevent national security threats and wars. Some people will wake up rejoicing that their debts are cleared, and others will wake up sick to their stomach that their life savings have vanished. It's easy to imagine if you're from one of the many countries whose government's fake money went to zero already. It will just become a global norm. Governments will be debt-free, but even better for them, they will have complete and utter control over every single person on the planet. Only then will they be able to start charging much higher taxes and payment fees because there's no other option. At the time of writing, there are already high-tech companies working on creating a chip that could be inserted into your hand to make payments. Imagine having Apple Pay in your hand. How convenient. You'd never need a wallet again. All your personal security information could be stored in a chip. You'd no longer ever have to fear losing your children at the shopping centre because the chip would also include a tracking device. It will prevent criminals from escaping from prison. It would also prevent crime in general. Anybody that did commit crime could have their chip switched off, but then they could make anything illegal, like writing this book. Maybe my chip was switched off. That's if I'm allowed to insert a chip into my hand in the first place. The Great Reset is likely to come in our lifetime, potentially this decade. And much of what I've said is speculation, but it's speculation based on high probabilities. And the rest of my teachings is about how to prepare for the inevitable changes that are coming. And it's not all bad, I promise. There is an answer, and in the end, we will win.